I'm Jen, the kinda old autistic lady, and today's topic is about meltdowns. Because I am so newly diagnosed autistic from earlier this month as a middle aged adult, I've been wondering for a while, have I ever had what could be coined as a meltdown as an adult? And I've watched a lot of other videos from other creators on YouTube that have talked about this, who are adult autistic folks, as well as talked to a few people in person in the autistic community. And none of it really resonated with me until I got thinking about it today over something that happened a few days ago. So I got this new microphone that hopefully the sound quality is better than the previous videos. But it's got a long boom arm. And then at the end of the boom arm, it's got a clamp where a person would clamp it to like the overhang on a desk. And when it came, what is today, Sunday? When it came on, it was either Thursday or Friday. I was so excited because what I was using before for sound was just awful. And very quickly, we determined, with my husband's help, that it wasn't going to work with my desk. And I have to give him a shout out because not only was he great in helping me because I have some left hand weakness right now. I've got a pinched nerve in my neck and I can't feel these two fingers and I've lost almost all my grip strength. So still doing physical therapy for that. Probably have to have surgery later in December to avoid some permanent nerve damage. But anyway, for a different video, I'm probably going to do another physical therapy video at some point. But anyway, so the reason it didn't work with this desk is because the overhang had a slant to it. And then after the slant, there wasn't enough of a flat surface on the underside of the desk before it hit the vertical structure of the desk to where the plate had enough room. And so my husband, who is one of the most patient people in the world, I swear he is, who is also an engineer and understands how things work and understands the spatial relationship behind things, was trying to explain to me that all it would take to get this to work, for a little bit more explanation. So I have a table behind the desk because my desk isn't very wide. And the table is where my monitors and the computers themselves and everything sit on. And then the normal desk itself is where like I have my keyboard and I spread out. He was just explaining to me that he had a board and he could get it from the garage and slide it underneath both the monitors, and he could clamp it to that, and then the weight of the monitors would keep this board down. Sounds super simple. It was super simple. But man, did I not see it that way. So to explain this in a way that, I don't know if you can follow or relate to this, or if I just was a crazy person. Crazy is not the right word. Unreasonable person. I could not picture how this was going to work. If you've seen my introduction video, you'll know a little bit about, I have no spatial intelligence at all. Like I kept saying to him, I don't want to have something that I bought brand new out of the box and have to rig up a solution. I want it to just work. And I was in a very binary black and white place of either it was going to work out of the box or I was going to send it back. And there was no other option because I was so frustrated. And my husband knows that this is how my mind works. We've been married for 18 years and he was super patient. Y'all, it took nearly 3 hours for him to convince me that we could just put the board underneath these monitors and then it would work. He knew after all these years that I would have to burn through all the energy I had to protest this before I would let him try. And granted, where I was coming from at the time that seemed reasonable was my cord management is awful. I have cords everywhere. I have all kinds of equipment everywhere, just for my day job, for my personal stuff, lamps, multiple like surge protectors with stuff plugged into them, multiple, what do you call them? What's the word? Can't think of it. Docking stations, multiple docking stations. And the space where I had to lift this board up was with the hand that doesn't work very well. And he was doing all like the heavy stuff. And he just kept telling me, we just have to lift up one thing at a time. And then he'd push the board, and then we'd lift up the next thing at a time, and we'd push the board. And the board was, I don't know, maybe you can't, the camera isn't picking it all up, but at most this board was like 3 feet long. And I just kept saying, no, it wasn't going to work. I didn't want to do it that way. It needed to work directly out of the box. It would be too hard to move everything. I didn't have the energy for it. My left hand doesn't work. And he was just so gentle and patient, but persistent, that he could make my microphone work for me, that I didn't have to send it back. And I was just like, I want to play with it. I want to get a video made. Like my brain was simultaneously in this has to work mode because I want to play with my microphone, and this absolutely can't work because this is too hard and I can't picture the solution. And, the one thing I was not doing was like telling him he had to get out of the room or something, because I knew he was coming from a good place. This is a pattern that has happened repeatedly in our marriage, where he sees something with a very simple solution and I'm like, no. And then he says, no, really, it is a simple solution. 5 minutes, we'll have it done. And I'm like, no, that can't possibly work. And it's because it's in a part of my autism profile that is spiky. I don't have spatial awareness. I am a very black and white thinker. Either something's going to work or it's not. And contrary to how I might come off in these videos, I try to come off kind of lighthearted and funny, and I have a very goofy personality, and that's all authentically me. That is not masked. There's a little bit of performative element to it because I'm in front of a camera, but I'm a goofy, silly person in front of people that know me really well. But the opposite of that is so true. I am a pessimist. I'm always looking at how, something that I don't understand isn't going to work. I'm prone to depression, long bouts of depression. And there's really no in between. And so I was in that place of just not depression, but in that place of it just, there's no way it can work. I don't understand how it'll work. You're asking me to do something that's too hard. And he just knew the energy had to get burned off before I would let him try. And he did. And it worked. And I was super happy with the result. And he did not do I told you so, because he loves me and he's just an awesome human. But I'm like, yep, I think I was having a meltdown. I was just having a tantrum over if it wasn't going to work my way. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't. It was like, but I couldn't let it go. And earlier on in our marriage, in my 20s, I would have been like, I'm not looking for a solution. I'm looking for somebody to let me vent. And so we began this communication pattern in our marriage after that point of whenever he would offer a solution, he would say venting or problem solving. And lots of times it's venting. And don't get me wrong, I'm a problem solver with a lot of things in my life. But certain things, some of the things I struggle with as a human, as an autistic person, I can't really divvy out where it comes from. I just have this place of, no, it's not going to work. And I can't see how it's going to work. I can't see how I can possibly move on without the thing working at the same time, because in this scenario, I just kept going, but I also can't use the microphone solution I was using before because it just sucked. So, a point of gratitude to him, and just to say that, yeah, I think I have meltdowns and maybe just didn't realize what it was. And to be fair, if I had said to him, look, I don't want to talk about it anymore, I'm done, he would have left the room. He wasn't being overpowering or anything like that. He was coming from a good place, and he knows how I am. And he was happy to fix the problem for me. So I guess that's what a meltdown looks for me, at least on something that I can say has been replicated over and over as a pattern. The next meltdown I had was yesterday. Y'all, I forget sometimes how much of a cocoon I live in, how much I isolate myself from other people. So if I have to go out and run any kind of errand, I don't do it on a weekend. I don't do it at night after people are off of work who work like a 9 to 5 kind of shift. I have Wednesdays off at my day job right now. I'm like on senior citizen hours. I'll pick up my groceries at 10 a.m. in the morning and do that if I have to. You know, the retired folks are out, and maybe the stay-at-home moms are out, and that's it. From a traffic perspective, from a store perspective, from a parking lot perspective, I do not like dealing with any of it on a weekend or at night. And because of this whole thing with the microphone and some other equipment challenges, I've been considering getting a second desk. And the room I'm in is very small. It's generous to call it a bedroom when the house was listed. I think maybe only a very young child with a twin bed and a dresser and little bedside table would really fit in here. But I've been considering getting a second desk, even though it's a pretty small space, just so that I could have a separate space for my personal stuff and for my work stuff, and not have to go back and forth between the two and mess with cords and all that kind of thing. So we decided to go to, and I'm not going to say the name of the store because I don't like naming brands and things unless it's like a recommendation of something that I like, hey, I really like this product. Like I named the place I got my fidget toys from in the other video because they have good stuff and it works for me. So I don't have a problem saying the name of the company, but I'm not going to say where I went, but it was a big box store looking for a desk. And after we got done, there was another store next to it. I'm not going to say the name of the store, but it is a well enough known store that if I said what it is, most people in the US would know what it is. Y'all, I forgot that it is Black Friday, Cyber Monday kind of a weekend. And it wasn't even that huge of a crowd, but I went in this store and immediately was overwhelmed. Not just because there was a bunch of people in there and it was kind of a zoo, but this store had 5 different Christmas songs playing at different points in the store, which I'm presuming that the design of this, they think that maybe you can't hear the other songs when you're in this corner of the store, so it's fine. And then you go to this other corner of the store and there's like, you had Bing Crosby singing, you know, the old fashioned stuff. And then you had, you know, like Mariah Carey in the next corner singing her stuff. But I walked in and could hear it all, just 3 steps in the door. We didn't need anything specific there. I should have just turned around and left. Instead, I said, no, let's walk around. My husband kind of wanted to look at something that he was looking for. And 10 minutes later, I was so done. And he went back in for something else. And I'm like, I can't do it. There is no energy left in my being right now that can handle this store. I'm going out to the car and you can go get the thing. And I'm just going to wait because, oh my word. I like being a hermit. I really do. So, So yeah, there's another reason I like being a hermit that I'll tackle in a totally different video. But okay, so now I'm gonna talk about some things that are a little bit lighter, just kind of as a what's been going on with me kind of a thing. I'm gonna share a picture. This first picture is the piece of pie that I walked into this morning. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of pebbling, but in terms of like if you hear an autistic person talk about pebbling, what it means, if you've not heard the term before, is it's really common for autistic folks, I guess, to like find something, like let's say in nature, like a neat stone, like a pebble, and go to somebody that they have affection for, a friend, family member, significant other, whatever it is, and be like, I saw this really cool stone and I thought about you, and then just give the person the stone. Or I saw this really colorful leaf and it made me want to give this to you. And it's just like little gifts that, we tend to show affection that way. Some of us. And so one of the things that I normally do and have done for 18 years plus our dating time before I married my husband was I always would give him the crust off of the back of my pie. Partly because I know he really likes it, and partly because I really don't like pie crust. If I eat Pop-Tarts taste to me like pie crust. I eat like s'more Pop-Tarts. So every time I eat pie, I always eat it, and then I offer my husband the last bite or two of crust at the end. But this morning, we had 2 pieces of pie left from Thanksgiving, and he took it upon himself to eat the crust off of my pie because he knew I would give it to him. And I had to give him grief because I'm like, you robbed me of the joy of giving you this pie crust. Like, I don't care that you ate it. I just wanted to give it to you. Like that action of being like, I'm thinking about you. I know you're going to like this. That little bit of joy I get from, hey, here's my pie crust. I'm like, man, you stole that from me. And, he was a little contrite, and I'm like, no, I'm not really upset about it. But I made a big deal out of it anyway and was kind of laughing it off. And the next picture, talking about topics with autism. I have 3 cats. 2 of them are black and one of them is solid gray. This first one, the cat's name is Taz. It's a little bit of a dated picture, but I was just thinking about how my cats and I have a whole conversation all the time, all day long. They're not allowed in my office, but anytime I'm not in the office, there's a whole host of me meowing back at these cats. And each one has its own little language with its own type of meows and its own type of body language and its own type of, if it wants to be pet on its head, it makes this sound. And if it wants its back scratched, it makes this sound, and so on and so on. And I was thinking about how I wish communicating with people was that easy. But it is so not. It is so not that easy. So if you've seen any of my shorts that I post, I've been doing some communication tips. And you might be thinking, well, why? You've told us you don't like being around people. You're autistic. What are all these? Where are all these tips coming from? So I talk a little bit about my background, just to get to know me better, as well as to know where some of this is coming from. So, almost my entire career, I have dealt with deconstructing communication. And keep in mind, I didn't know I was autistic until earlier this month. So I've been living my whole life thinking I was neurotypical. And when communication broke down on a personal level, I always internalized it and thought that there was something wrong with me and it was my fault. And, everybody else around me seems to understand what's going on, but me. And then I ask a question that's really out of place, or I ask too many questions and wear people down, or, I say something awkward and then people react weird and I don't know what I've done wrong, or, whatever it is. I'm a very verbal person. I understand metaphors. I understand direct language, but there's still so much to communication that I don't understand on a personal level. But so what my career has been like, I spent a few years after graduating from college as a high school teacher. I was certified to teach English and Spanish, have degrees in both and in education. And after 3 years, I said, this isn't for me. But I had a hard time finding a different type of job. Most places, like to get a job at a business, were very much concerned that I would leave to go back to teaching. And it's hard to convince a business that I understand business when I've never studied business. I've never worked in business. I had some retail experience when I was going to college and stuff, but I never really had anything beyond that. And so the first job I got after teaching was in a contact center, working for a life insurance company. And talking on the phone actually was really good for me because I can close my eyes to a certain extent, because if you've ever worked in a contact center, you'll know that there's a lot of multitasking that happens. You're supposed to be talking and documenting at the same time, or looking at knowledge resources, or, there's a lot going on. But at least to understand the problem and what, where they're coming from, I could close my eyes, I could focus on just the sound of their voice. And within the scope of being a life insurance company, there's only so many problems that a person can have. They're usually about something like payment, a lapsed policy, questions about how their policy works, reporting that somebody passed away. That's, it's limited. And then we moved to Tennessee for my husband's job. And I got another contact center job working for a very large multinational organization that I won't name, that has business dealings in just about everything you can possibly imagine all over the globe. And it was for their internal contact center. So everybody that was talking to us, for the most part, were employees of that organization. So I started out like in the HR benefits kind of area and really enjoyed it. But then when a job opened up on the quality team of that contact center, I took that job in 2010 and worked in that job until I was laid off about a year ago. Almost exactly a year ago. It was the last day of November last year. And the bulk of what I did in that job was listening to other people communicate on the phone and then helping to come up with strategies in order to communicate better the next time that type of scenario would come up again in the future. And unlike the jobs I had had before that, the communication stuff was in a much broader scope of responsibility and subject area. And it wasn't just with people in the U.S. I worked with people in the U.S., India, Guatemala, Malaysia, the U.K., lots and lots of folks in India, Australia, China, Morocco, Ukraine, of course, the United States, Canada, just literally all over the world. People that worked for the organization would call in and they would have anything from an HR issue, a hiring issue, employee relations, operations, technical problems with their computer, financial issues with the systems, reporting an emergency somewhere like a hurricane and they can't find their colleague. I'm in a bunker somewhere in Ukraine trying to work and there's a war. The Delta crisis with coronavirus and people calling looking for oxygen tanks in India. I mean, you name it. I listened to phone calls that dealt with just about anything all over the world. If it was in English, I listened to it. And worked with the folks that took these calls in order to help them if communication broke down or if they didn't know aspects of how to do their job or they made a mistake, but it was because documentation that they were following was incorrect, getting that updated. I trained people. I did some public speaking. I coached coaches on how to help their folks get better. So I was really, for the bulk of my career involved in helping people to communicate better. And of course, when it's not me communicating, I can see it a lot more clearly because I have an outsider's perspective. And unlike communicating in real time, I could listen to the recording multiple times if I had to catch a lot of nuance and detail that was going on. That, of course, the person on the phone didn't have that luxury, but after the fact, could work with me to listen to that recording, understand some of the nuance that they might have missed. Because let's face it, when we have communication, there's lots of levels of things going on between what's actually said, what's inferred, what's assumed that the person on the other end of the line knows, the actual subject matter. Sometimes subject matter changes or processes change and people don't know about it. There's a lot to it. I always told people that I would coach that in a conversation, there's like 100 different things going on at once, which is why I think autistic folks struggle with conversations, because we see 90% of it, and that remaining 10% in real time that we don't see is what makes us stand out as not fitting in a group or any number of other things. So, and then depending on where they were, if they were a new person or not, I could sometimes see their screen too and see what they were clicking, see what knowledge resources they were using. And so I learned over the course of my career to deconstruct communication and then reconstruct it in a way that other people could communicate and other people in different cultures would understand, as well as different learners and different learner types, different neurotypes. Because let's face it, autistic folks, neurotypical folks, folks with ADHD, folks that, are very technical, folks that are not very technical, people come in all kinds of shades and layers of understanding when they talk to each other on the phone. And I did that in writing as well. Like if there were chat communications, if there were email exchanges, it was really the bread and butter of what I did, was to deconstruct communication and then reconstruct it in a way where I could coach somebody to understand how it broke down and how to avoid it happening again in the future. And then I was laid off about a year ago. And it wasn't just me. Like, they shuttered my entire department because it was such a global organization. They decided to move that work to a different country. And I don't hold any grudges against those people because I worked with them forever. My life has been enriched for knowing them. And it was honestly one of the best things that could have happened to me because I had been looking into getting into a different line of work for quite some time. And had been taking certifications and things. And what I'm in right now is really niche. And I won't get into it for purposes of this video, but when every once in a while I have a light bulb moment and I think about something that I've had a conversation with other people about, and I go, oh, that could really help somebody that's struggling to communicate if that 10% that autism can kind of get in the way of, maybe that would help somebody else. And that's part of why I started the channel, to be frank, is that I don't want the knowledge that I've obtained over all that time to just sit with me and rot, because it's not something that very many people have the opportunity to do either in a career or in their personal life, to really look at how other people communicate and help them with it. But I have extensively studied it. It's something I'm very passionate about. With that said, however, if you ever were to come across me in real life where I'm having to do the communicating, I am not claiming to be good at this, especially if it's not one-on-one with people. Put me 2-on-1, 3-on-1 in a group. I am super awkward. I do one of two things. I either don't say much at all, or you can't get me to shut up, and there's not a whole lot of in between. And when I don't shut up, I have no idea if people are interested in what I'm saying because it's just all lost on me, because it's not just the voice, right? There's all the nonverbal stuff that I think a lot of autistic folks struggle with. And so that's why I'm doing these shorts with little tips and tricks on communicating, is that I think it could be helpful. And me as a person, I'm the same way. I can either be really succinct in about a minute video and get a point across, or you're going to get me for a half hour to an hour chattering, because anything in between is just, it's not in my wheelhouse. So that's what's going on there. I'll refer to that whole journey, I'm sure, in more depth in some other videos, because I learned a lot doing that job, and I felt very fortunate that I was able to do it. And really being let go, that type of work, at least within the contact center space, at least in the United States, is really drying up. It's being replaced by AI, where AI analyzes transcripts from, customers and analysts, or agents, sometimes they're called, and kind of spits out what the problems are. There are pros and cons to that approach. I'm not gonna crap on that, but there are pros and cons. Or it's going overseas to where labor costs are lower, and I don't have a problem with that personally, because I feel like every person on the face of the planet deserves to be able to feed their family and have meaningful work. And I don't think that's exclusively a right of any one country, neurotype, nationality, race, gender, creed, gender expression, on and on. But for me, it was the right time to get out of it. So, that's that. I've been talking a while. And, I bring it all up in this video because I know it might come across like, is she really autistic? If you see some of my videos, you might go, well, she doesn't seem autistic. And then you see other videos and you're like, oh, okay, she's really unmasked now. She's like all over the place and stimming and everything else. And I'm still figuring out what unmasking means for me. I'm sure it's going to take a long time to figure that out. And of course, getting older, just not caring what other people think anymore. That's a big piece of it also, because I'm more comfortable in my skin. I will say that one thing I do that I never did before, really when I started to self-diagnose as autistic earlier this year, is I keep a duffel bag in my car, and it has a blanket, a floor pillow, a second floor pillow, and a couple of comfort items that I carry around with me that I'll talk about in a different video. And if I have to go to a social function and there's not comfortable seating for me, let's say it's a high top type seating, or, I'm a big person. If there's arms on the chairs and I'm not comfortable, or if it's folding chairs and I'm not comfortable, I pull my shit out and I sit on the floor. And then I get 12 people come up to me and say, oh, there's a seat over here. You can sit where, and I'm like, nope, I'm comfortable right here. I really appreciate the offer. I know they're coming from a good place, but this is how I'm most comfortable, and I'm going to sit here like this. So I probably come across a little bit different because nobody else is sitting on the floor engaging with me. Because let's face it, a lot of folks that are kind of old and older that can't get up off the floor. I have my days too. But honestly, it helps me to relax. I would say that's probably the thing that getting a diagnosis and knowing for sure, as opposed to being self-diagnosed, has helped me, is to relax. Because I was used to being a certain way 24/7. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm around people, I'm masking, I have to act a certain way. It was who I thought I was. So I spent a lot of my life simply being tense and uncomfortable because my posture didn't fit with what seemed to be normal around me. Or, I'm supposed to like certain things, or, even with not my husband, but like other family members in my extended family, or acquaintances or friends of friends. If I had to be somewhere and nobody really cared how I was acting, it still felt like they cared, like how I was acting. And so until I would leave, I'd be all tense. And same thing at home. I just, even sitting in a room by myself, I was always tense, just never fully relaxing. And then I would shut down and I would go a week and not be functional. And it even unrelated to the alcoholism stuff that I have and will talk more about in other videos, you can only be tense and uncomfortable for so long before your body's like, no more. And so then I would have these days where I'd sleep 12 hours at a time, 14 hours at a time. And that would be normal until I could do it all over again. And y'all, that's exhausting. It really is. So the point in today's video, number one, don't help yourself to my pie crust. I want to give it to you. Number two, if something simple will help me, I appreciate your patience, because at the end of the day, something like what my husband did really did help me, really did get the end result that was needed. But getting from my two black and white polar opposites of it's got to work versus it won't work, I appreciate people who are patient with the fact that I just wasn't having it. And number three, don't go out and shop when it's busy. Getting stuff delivered to your porch is also a mighty fine alternative to going out and being in this mess. Number four, the communication stuff, I hope to share a little wisdom, but know that it's still something I struggle with. I still am a very awkward human around other humans. And when I don't seem awkward, because I've had a lot of people, not a lot, I've only told a handful of people about my autism diagnosis. So of course, instead I go on YouTube and I tell everybody but the people in my circle. But the ones I have told have all had the same reaction. And they're like, there's no way. You're not autistic. And I think a lot of it has to do with how verbal I am. But they're only seeing what's on the outside. They don't see how hard everything is on the inside. And then just the last point about, I've lost my train of thought. Said the thing about the cat, because I know animals are sometimes easier than people. In conclusion, I had something else, but I forgot what it was, because I don't write a script when I do these videos. I think, come across really stifled, unnatural, overly performative, masked, all of the above. I had one other thing that I thought I might talk about, and I think I'm going to save that for a different day because it doesn't fit with the tone, I guess, of of today's video. So this is just some odds and ends of things for a Sunday night. Kind of disjointed, but I'm gonna put this out there and just be blunt about it. I feel disjointed a lot as an autistic person. I feel like segment A to B is really smooth and I can do it and it works. And then segment C to D might work fine too. But then trying to connect another segment to it is something maybe that I struggle with, and it feels like the world's going to end trying to do that. And it's a hard thing to explain to people in my orbit who are not autistic, because the things that I struggle with are things that they as individual humans don't think twice about. They just do it every day, and it's not a big deal to them. And I'll give you an example. When mail comes, I'm capable of opening it. I'm capable of taking it out. I'm capable of understanding if something is a bill and I go online and I pay it. But the paper that's left over after the fact, making the decision on whether or not it goes in the garbage, goes in the shredder, or goes into the filing cabinet, I'm pretty sure I have meltdowns over that. And it stacks up until basically my husband has to take care of it, because it's just a point at which that decision feels too difficult. Because I'm afraid that if I make the wrong decision, it's going to be problematic, right? If I throw it away and I didn't shred it, identity theft. If I file it and I don't file it in a way that makes sense and I need to find it again, I'm never going to find it, and it's like it never existed, because there's more than one way to file almost anything. If I shred it when I should have kept it, well, then we have the whole Iran-Contra affair where you're picking paper out of the garbage, trying to piece it all together and figure out how to reconstruct a document. And, it's like I feel like there's no correct option for certain things. Now, if something's obviously junk mail, I can throw that kind of stuff away, rip it up enough or shred it enough that like my address is not, if there's somebody digging through my garbage or something, they already know where I live because it's right outside my house. And if it's in the landfill, there's not enough of it to reconstruct reasonably. But the stuff that's sort of the in-between, it just feels overwhelming. And thank goodness I, am in a house with another adult human who can do that for me, because it's just something that I just, there's no other way to say this than to say that if I had a choice between filing or throwing away or shredding a big pile of opened mail that is ambiguous about what to do with it, or something catastrophic was going to happen, and we're dealing between those two extremes, they feel the same to me. It's not logical. It's a hard thing to get other people to understand. But it makes sense now that I know I'm autistic. And there's a lot of other things like that. The mail thing is probably just sort of the low-hanging fruit of something that's easy to talk about on YouTube. I would normally say something at this point in the video of like and subscribe and leave me a comment with X, Y, and Z. But this has been so scattered, I don't even know what to ask for that's relevant. Tell me about talking to your animals. Tell me about if there's something that you have a block about, like I do with the mail. Tell me Tell me if other people are eating the crust off of your pie. Tell me if you even eat pie. Pie is one of those things that as a kid, I didn't eat pie. My parents and my aunts and uncles thought I was nuts because I was a very picky eater. And it was because of the crust underneath. I would eat the filling of the pie, and then I would get scolded for not eating the crust. And then I'd try to give it to relatives and they'd eat it, but I'd still kind of get scolded because I was supposed to like pie crust, and I just don't. So tell me if you like pie. Tell me if you eat the crust. Tell me how you're handling Black Friday weekend in the crowds. Like I said, I don't even know what to ask for. This is a really scattered one. But it is what it is, right? That's the state of mind that I'm in at the moment. I've been wondering if I want to highly edit these videos to make them seem more polished. I'm sure that I probably lose some viewers watching them because if I don't edit them, they're all over the place. But I've made the decision that if I decide to ramble or go in a bunch of different directions, that given the nature of the channel, it might help somebody to see me be scattered and to try to recombobulate myself or to talk about some of the things that are difficult, even if they're not presented in a logical sequence. If I edit the stuff out, not only does it feel like masking to me to a certain extent for this type of a channel, for it to be my channel and to be truly authentic to how I am as a human, but also, I can be performative and probably not seem autistic, how most people have seen me my entire life. I can make eye contact with a camera and sustain it if I have to. I can make eye contact with another human being for a sustained amount of time if I have to. I can pretend I know what other people are talking about if they're talking about something that I'm not understanding because of whatever thing that I'm not picking up on. I can do all that, but is it helpful? I don't think that it is. Not for this kind of a channel. And I know that there are a lot of other creators, autistic creators online that have very polished videos. And I'm really thankful that they're out there and that they are polished, because as I was trying to learn about, late diagnosis and how autism presents in women and masking and all of these things and how they're different from maybe how it would present in a child. If some of those videos hadn't been polished and edited and succinct, I may have lost interest. I do not have ADHD. I know a lot of folks do who are autistic, but I may have lost focus and not watched the whole video and then missed out on some really great stuff. So I definitely believe that there are places on the internet and channels where it absolutely makes sense, and that the people that are good at that kind of thing continue to do that and are adding a lot of value. But for me, I think that there is good that comes out of being raw and unedited and unmasked and scattered and all over the place. And at the end of the day, if nobody watches the video, nobody watches the video. I don't really care. I mean, I want to help people if it's going to be worthwhile to them, to you. But if I lost you at minute 15 because I'm rambling, so be it. I get it. Maybe a video isn't meant to hit you a certain day, the way I've presented it. And that's okay. I don't have to be all things to all people. I don't have to try to guess at what anybody viewing my stuff is going to need. There will be some videos that will be more polished. For example, the addiction videos. I'm not going to ramble all over the place on an addiction video. It's too important to me that if there's somebody struggling with addiction, especially who's autistic and struggling with an addiction, that they're able to go from point A to point B in a video and not wonder, what was that weird bleepity bleep of a train that I was just on? Who is this conductor? I'm not going to do that with certain videos. With other videos, I will, like this one. And I intend to continue to create shorts and to be really succinct with those. But I'm curious if anybody that wants to comment, outside of a special interest or maybe other subject matter that you know really well, that maybe you work in a profession, or you have a family member that is really into something, so therefore you know a lot about it, or outside of that kind of stuff. I don't know how common it is to be scattered for people who are verbal in the autistic community. For those who are not speech abled, I'm going to make a guess and say that it's absolutely possible that y'all are scattered, and that it's just a different journey to get the scatteredness out and express it. One thing I will say, and this is the last point, and I think it's an important one. I didn't know I was going to go here when I started the video, but I'm going to go here. I have really struggled with depression in my life. And I think a lot of it is tied to being in this weird dichotomy of needing to connect to other people, because humans are wired to connect to other people. Also needing to be alone and almost be like a hermit and stay in my house all the time, while simultaneously also needing to be authentically who I am, and only having one or two people that I could do that with before I knew why it was that way. And masking can absolutely make you depressed, because you go through this thing of, well, people expect me to be a certain way, and then I act that way, and then they still don't like me, or they still don't understand where I'm coming from, or I say something and it's just wrong, and people just have a reaction to it, and I don't understand what's going on, or I understand what's going on, but it's still an outcome that I wasn't hoping for. And you go through enough of that you for me, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, I retreat, and then I go through a cycle of, well, I'm not going to let anybody in. And then because I'm not letting anybody in, the depression gets worse, and the depression gets even worse. And then because I'm depressed and pessimistic, then people who want to be with me and connect with me don't want to, because then I'm all in the dumps all the time and pessimistic. And it's like this thing that just snowballs until, by sheer force of will, I wake up one day and I say, something's got to change. And I went through that a lot when I was let go from this job a year ago. And what I have to say that really helped is, number one, having a therapist that is a very stable therapist. I mean, I have a standing appointment that I go to every week, same time. And it's been the same therapist ever since I got out of rehab. As well as try to give myself grace with finding another job. If you are looking for a job, autistic or non-autistic, it is a freaking hard time to find a job right now. It's due to a lot of factors. Some of it's the economy. Some of it's the global economy if you're not in the U.S. Some of it is how AI systems and different tools that HR uses to scan resumes don't pick stuff up. Some of it is, it's difficult to go through the interview process as an autistic person. I've definitely heard autistic people say that the whole interview process is designed to basically weed out autistic people, but have a plausible deniability in order to not, for legal reasons, come across as being discriminatory. I don't know if that's true or not. I've definitely heard that sentiment a lot in the autistic community. Myself personally, I tend to interview well because I'm very animated. I don't have a slow reaction time to curveball questions. That's never been a struggle for me, and I may do some videos about interview tips as well. But even if you interview well, and even if you have a fantastic resume, and even if you have gobs of experience, and even if you are willing to commute really far for a job, it is a hard time to find a job. And I mean, not just this month, I'm saying the last couple of years. I know no one that has been like, oh yeah, I got let go, or I left a company and this has been just a joyride. I can have any job I want. There have been times like that in at least the US economy. This is not one of them. And I don't know that it will get better. But if you are someone who's in that situation right now, who is looking for a job and really discouraged and autistic, my message to you is keep plugging away at it, because the only way you're going to find a job is to keep trying. I myself am on a contract job, so there is an end date to it. And after that point, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to get hired by the company that is taking my service, for whom I'm providing services, or if I'm just going to be back in the job market again looking. I'll know probably over the summer. It was a little bit of a longer term contract. But after working for the same place for 14 years, I thought I was set. I had good benefits and built up PTO and all the things that happen when you work for the same place for a really long time. And then on top of it, having to, everything is new in a situation like that. When you work at the same place for a really long time, you get comfortable. You know the people, the layout of the building, the business's processes, their methodology of how they do things, and on and on. And then you move to a new place and it's not that way. And you start completely from scratch and everything is change. And as an autistic person, that's hard. I'm at 58 minutes right now. So in the last 2 minutes, I just want to say that, if you've been watching my videos, I appreciate it. I'm going to continue to create content as I'm able. And I've made the decision that I would rather create more content and not have it be as highly edited than the other way around. Because I think there's a lot of creators that are going the other approach. And I think there's room on YouTube for both types of creators. And I think there's enough of an audience that if you're only somebody that watches highly edited things, great. There's lots of material out there for you to consume. If you're somebody that only listens or watches autistic folks that are kind of a little bit more unpolished, great. I might be your person. If you like a mixture, I might be your person too. It just depends on the topic, how much time I have. And frankly, I'm still learning editing software. I'm experimenting with a few different ones and I don't know which one I want to go with. But I'm going to stick with it because this has been really helpful for me to try to understand my own autism better by talking through it. And if it helps you, I'm really happy about that. And if I'm talking into the void, people lose patience with my being everywhere, I'm still getting something out of it. So thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, tell other people about it because I'm still a very small channel. And I've enjoyed responding to the comments that I have gotten so far on my videos. It is one of those small joys that I'm really happy to have. So have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. If you're watching this on Sunday, and have a good one. Bye.